I wanted to do a part 2 for React navigation. In part 1, we talked about how to set up your navigator in version 5. We talked about how to create a stack navigator, as you can see here. And then we talked about how to use tabs. And we talked about how to pass data back from one screen to the previous screen. In this video, we're going to talk about how to actually use some hooks for React navigation. And we're also going to talk about theming in your React navigation library. So first, let's go to our feed screen that we created in part 1. And as you can see here, it's a stateful component. But now we're going to change this to a functional component. So if you go to the docs for React navigation, you can see there's a section here called hooks. So we're going to focus on the first 5 hooks for this video. I might do a separate video on using the use linking hook here. This is mainly for deep linking. But for now, we're going to use these 5 hooks here. So first, we're going to look at useNavigation. So this can be placed everywhere you use this.props.navigation in your app. So let's go to our code and let's change this to a functional component. So let's get rid of the class. Let's make this functional. And then we get rid of our render. Okay, and now let's import the use. Actually, it's not in our React package here. So let's actually just copy and paste the import here. So copy, paste. And as you can see, we say constant navigation equals use navigation. So we can actually name this whatever you want to. But let's just do constant navigation equals use navigation. Okay. If you go back to our docs here, you can see we have a useRoute hook too. So useRoute can replace this.props.route in your app. So let's go back to our app and let's import useRoute. Now we can say constant route equals useRoute. Okay, let's check that again. useRoute, okay. And now we can just replace this.prop.route with just route. Okay. And now down here, we just use navigation for these. So our component is completely functional now. So let's save. And let's fix our error here. And reload. You can see our feed screen still works the same way as before. Okay, so let's go to our detail screen. And let's do something similar here. So I'm going to copy this into our detail screen. And I'm going to copy these two. And let's paste this. Let's change this to a functional component. To equals. Okay, get rid of the render. And now we have route here. So we can say route.params. And we have navigation, so we can say navigation.navigate. And down here too. And down here also. And you can see this makes things a lot cleaner in your app. And you have less overhead for your components. Save. And our detail screen still works the same way as before. So if we go to the docs again, you see we also have useFocusEffect. So useFocusEffect is very similar to useEffect. But useFocusEffect gets called when your screen is in focus, like when it comes back into focus. And you actually need to use a callback in your useFocusEffect for it to work correctly. So they use react.useCallback here. So useCallback is another hook in the React library. Okay, so let's go to the code. And I'm going to import useFocusEffect. Let's put these on a different line. And now we're going to use that hook here. So useFocusEffect. And I'm going to say react.useCallback. You could also just import useCallback up here and get rid of the React here, but that's up to you. Okay, and then we pass the callback function to here. So for this, I'm going to call a API function. So I'm going to use fetch. And I'm actually going to use a free API. I'm going to go to actually countries API. And then I'm going to go to REST countries. And I'm going to find a very simple API call. Let's see what this one is. So let's use this API call. So copy. And then I'm going to put that into here. And then we're going to get that response back. And with that response, we're going to use the JSON data for that. So if you're not familiar with fetch, I did a video using fetch in React Native a while back, so you can look at that too. It's very simple. So we can say response.json to get the JSON for that. Then, and then we take that data that we get back, so that'll be our object here from our API. And then we return some code here. So I'm going to say console.log, and then let's just log the data. Okay. And down here, I want to return something after it's complete. So I want to say return, and then I'm just going to actually log something. So let's do console.log. Then I'm just going to say lost focus. Okay, so let's save this and restart. And I'm going to open the debugger. Okay, so let's actually go to our detail screen and see what happens. So you can see that we have our data here with our country. And let's see what happens when we go to the tab screen. We see that we lost focus. Let's go back to the detail screen. And you can see that our API call was called again. So we got a new API call. So that's one difference between useEffect and useFocusEffect. If we were using useEffect, our API would not be called again. Like our function would not be called again. This would not be called again. But because we're using useFocusEffect, when our screen comes back into focus, this will get called again. So be aware of how many times you need to run this function. You might want to use useEffect. You might want to use useFocusEffect. So be aware of that. Okay, so back in the code, we covered useNavigation, useRoute, and useFocusEffect. Now let's look at the docs, and let's go to useNavigationState now. So useNavigationState hooks into the entire state of your navigation object. So that also includes the route object itself. So let's go to the detail screen, and I'm going to import useNavigationState. I'm going to say constant state equals useNavigationState. And then it takes in the state, and we want to return that state back and put it into our state object here. Okay. And let's actually just log that for now. So let's do console.log state. And I'm going to get rid of this log for now. Okay. Let's save. And let's reload. Okay, and let's go to our detail screen. So this is our state object. So you can see it includes the index. So the index is the index of this screen in your stack. And then we have our route names. So our route names is home, detail, bottom tabs, and top tabs. And we have our routes, home, detail. So this is the current state of your navigator object. So for example, if you want to track the index of your screens, you could say constant index, and then take your state and do state.index. Okay, so we can do a string template and do screen index and just do index. Okay, so let's save, go back to our app, reload. and then we have screen index 1. Now we have screen index 2. So we can go back, and now screen index 1 and 0. Okay. So that's a good way to keep track of your screen index too. So you might want to show different messages based on the index of your screen. Okay, so now we covered useNavigation, useRoute, useFocusEffect, useNavigationState. Let's go look at the last one that I want to cover for this video, and that is useIsFocus. So this one is very easy to use. We just import the useIsFocus, and then we use the useIsFocus hook, and that returns a Boolean. So for this one, let's go to tab 2, and I'm going to import that hook. And then let's put our brackets here for this. And let's return. Then I want to say constant is focused equals use is focused. Okay. And then let's just log that value. So console.log is focused. Okay, so let's reload. Let's go to our detail screen. Let's actually open our debugger. And now let's go to our bottom tabs. Then let's go to tab 2. And now we see the value of true. And now if we go to tab 3, we see false. Tab 1. Tab 1, you don't see a actual value because there's no true or false change for that. So if the value doesn't change, then you won't see the value being logged. Okay, keep that in mind. If you switch between tab 1 and tab 3, that will not be called because this tab 2 is not being focused or unfocused. It's just the same state as it was before. So if you go back to tab 2, then you see the value being set to true. So whenever it changes, you'll see that being logged. Okay, so there's also a lot of cool things that you can do with that if you want to know if a screen is focused or not. So this covers the 5 hooks that I want to show you with useNavigation. Use scroll to top is pretty straightforward. I'm not going to cover that one for this one. You'll probably only use the first 5 in your apps most of the time. So now I want to cover theming. If you look in the docs here, where is that at? Theme. So themes here. Theming in React Navigation is really, really easy. I like what they've done a lot with it. So you basically use a navigation container like we were using before, and you just set the theme prop for that. And you can define your own themes using a theme object. So let's go to the code and let's go to our app.js. While we're here, I'm going to turn this into a functional component. You don't have to for this, but I like to use functional components if we can. So let's just turn this into a functional component. Let's just do like this. Okay, let's get rid of the component. And we can get rid of our render. I'm going to export default app at the bottom here. So let's do app. Okay, so everything works the same as before here. We could have kept this at the top, but that's fine for this video. So if you look at the package.json, I've already added a new library. I've added the React Native Appearance library. So let's go to the docs for that. So this is a package that lets you hook into the system color theme or the color scheme. So that's either light or dark. So in your OS, you can set the general theme of your phone to be light or dark theme. And you often want your app to match that too. So I've already done all this already. Pretty easy to install this. Don't forget to use pod install for iOS. So you can use a appearance provider. So this hooks into the scheme of your phone, like the color scheme of your phone. So let's go to our app. Actually, I'm going to copy and paste this into here. Let's go to our app.js and let's paste this. Oops, didn't copy it. Copy, paste. And let's use our hook since we're using a functional component. So use color scheme as a hook. Let's go down here and do constant color scheme equals use color scheme. And now let's go to our return. I want to wrap this in our appearance provider. appearance provider. So you only need this if you want to be aware of the system color scheme. So let's wrap this. Okay. And now let's go up here to our imports. And in our React Navigation native imports here, I want to add 2 color schemes. I want to add the default theme. So this is what you see by, So this is what you see by default when you use React Navigation. And then I want to add the dark theme. Okay. So save. And now let's go to theme. First, change it to default. So nothing should change if you use this. So let's save. And actually, let's get rid of our debugger. So everything looks the same as before. So now let's use the dark theme. Save. Now you can see things are very different. So you don't see our text because our text is black. Okay, so you can see our tabs are a different color too. Keep that in mind. You have to change your colors for your text and so forth if you're going to use the dark theme. So now let's use our hook. So our hook for this can be one of 2 values. This will either be light or dark. So we can actually do a conditional for that. So let's go down here and I'm going to say color scheme equals dark. So if it's dark, then we want to use the dark theme. Else, we want to use the default theme. So we can press save. And you can see we have our default theme here still. So let's see what happens when we change the color scheme for the phone in our settings. So let's go to settings in our iPhone here. And I think it's in developer. And you can see we have dark appearance or light appearance. So now let's change it to dark appearance. You can see we have our dark theme now for our phone. So let's go back to our app now. And now you can see our app has the dark theme by default because our phone has a dark theme by default. So now if we go back to our settings again and change it back to light and go back to our app, you can see we have our light theme. So it changes the colors for you without even having to reload the app, which is nice. Last, I want to cover creating your own theme. So that's actually pretty easy. So let's go up here and create a theme object. So let's do constant. Let's just say my theme equals. Now we need to define a few different things that are in the docs here. So let's go back to the themes, the docs. And you can see for our theme object, you could define things like primary, background, card, text, and border. Okay, so I'm actually just going to copy and paste this here to save some time. Let's go back here. And for primary, I'm going to use, let's use purple. And for background, 6Cs. I think that's like a light grayish color. For card, I'm going to say black. For text, I'm going to say white. And for border, I don't think we'll see this, but let's say green. So card is the color of things like your navigation bar, like your app bar, and your drawer. So let's save. Put this down here in our my theme. So let's go to change default theme to my theme. Okay, so let's save. And now you can see we have different colors. So this is the gray color that we used for our background here. So let's go to feed item, view bottom tabs. And now you can see our purple here for our primary. And also we have purple up here for our navigation, arrow, and text here. We can also change the card to, let's change the card to something like red. And now you can see we have red for our top tabs. As you can see here, only this top bar is red. And that's because we are setting the colors down here in our separate screens. So let's actually get rid of these colors here. Now let's save. And now you can see all of our navigation bars are red. And our text up here in the bar is purple. Our tabs are red. So keep in mind that like the top tabs here are using the card color, but the bottom tabs are using the primary color. Keep that in mind when you're using different types of tabs. And you can look at the docs here if you're not sure about what these different colors represent. So the dark color here says whether this is a dark theme or light theme. You don't really need to use that if you don't want to. You can just set different themes for dark and light and do a conditional statement like we did here. Really up to you. Theming is really easy. It's really, really easy. I love what they're doing a lot. I hope you enjoyed the video and I hope that it was of use to you. So I wanted to cover a few different hooks for React Navigation and theming in React Navigation. I want to keep going with this series and do more with this library because it's pretty cool and there's a lot to do. So stay tuned for part 3 in the future and happy coding. Bye.